Jules Bianchi. Heavy rain is falling at Suzuka as 25-year-old Jules Bianchi races for the Marussia team. Earlier in the race, another driver had already crashed, and a recovery crane is out on track retrieving the wreck under waving yellow flags. Bianchi, driving under caution but still carrying real speed, loses control on standing water and hydroplanes off the racing line, directly toward that same crane. His low Formula One chassis slides partially underneath the heavy vehicle, and the impact subjects him to massive deceleration forces as his helmet strikes its framework. He suffers a diffuse axonal brain injury, one of the most severe forms of traumatic brain damage, and is rushed into emergency surgery. Bianchi falls into a coma and never wakes up, dying 9 months later, the first Formula One driver to die from racing injuries since Senna 21 years earlier. His crash leads directly to the introduction of the virtual safety car and, eventually, the Halo cockpit device that now sits above every driver's head. Ayrton Senna. May 1st, 1994. Three-time world champion Ayrton Senna is leading the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, flying through the fast Tamburello corner at nearly 190 miles per hour in his Williams. It's lap 7. Without warning, his car suddenly leaves the racing line. No braking, no correction, just a straight, unbroken path toward the outside wall. The Williams slams into an unprotected concrete barrier at close to full speed, and the front of the car crumples instantly. A broken suspension arm is thrown loose in the impact and punches straight through his helmet visor, causing catastrophic head trauma. Marshals reach him within seconds, but the damage is beyond saving. He's airlifted to hospital, where doctors fight for hours before pronouncing him dead that afternoon. Brazil declares 3 days of national mourning, and over 3 million people fill the streets of Sao Paulo for his funeral. Senna's death becomes the single biggest turning point in Formula One safety history, triggering redesigned barriers, stronger cockpits, and rule changes that still protect drivers today. Roland Ratzenberger. Just 1 day earlier, at that very same circuit, 33-year-old rookie Roland Ratzenberger is out on a qualifying run for only his third ever Formula One weekend. His car had suffered front wing damage earlier in the session, and his small team had rushed through a temporary repair. On his next flying lap, approaching the high-speed Villeneuve corner at nearly 195 miles per hour, that repair fails completely. Without any front downforce, the car becomes instantly uncontrollable and shoots off the track, spearing head-on into a concrete barrier. It disintegrates on impact, and Ratzenberger is killed instantly from a skull fracture, the first driver death at an F1 race weekend in 12 years. Overshadowed the very next day by Senna's crash, his death proves just as pivotal, helping force through mandatory head and neck restraint devices and a wave of safety reforms that followed. Gilles Villeneuve. Final qualifying at Zolder, Belgium. Beloved Ferrari driver Gilles Villeneuve, known for his fearless racing style, is pushing hard in the closing minutes of the session, desperate to beat his teammates' time. Racing at over 140 miles per hour, he comes up rapidly behind a much slower car completing a cooldown lap. That driver, hearing the Ferrari approaching, moves right to let him through. But at the exact same instant, Villeneuve also swerves right to make the pass. Neither sees the other's intention in time. The Ferrari's nose clips the slower car's rear wheel, launching Villeneuve violently into the air. His car begins cartwheeling end over end, disintegrating with each rotation. During one of the flips, he's thrown from the cockpit, still strapped to his seat, and strikes the ground with tremendous force, sustaining a fatal fracture to his neck and spine. Ferrari and the entire paddock mourn one of the sport's most charismatic talents. Ronnie Peterson, Monza, Italian Grand Prix. Swedish driver Ronnie Peterson, nicknamed Super Swede, starts from the second row in his Lotus. As the tightly packed field accelerates toward the first chicane, cars jostle for position in the braking zone and contact breaks out across the pack. Peterson's Lotus is clipped and launched sideways into the barrier at high speed, and his car immediately bursts into flames as ruptured fuel tanks ignite. Several drivers, including James Hunt, stop and rush over to pull him from the burning wreckage. He's conscious and talking, but has suffered multiple compound fractures to both legs. Surgeons operate through the night, and doctors are initially cautiously optimistic. But overnight, Peterson develops a fat embolism, fat particles from his shattered bones blocking vital blood vessels, and dies early the next morning. His teammate Mario Andretti wins the race and clinches the World Championship that same weekend, but can barely celebrate after learning the news. Wolfgang von Trips, Monza, lap 2. German Count Wolfgang von Trips is leading the World Championship and needs only a second-place finish to clinch his first title. Battling side by side with Jim Clark through the high-speed parabolica at around 140 miles per hour, their wheels touch. The contact sends his Ferrari veering off the track and up an embankment, where it strikes a wire fence separating the circuit from a packed spectator area. The car disintegrates on impact, scattering wreckage into the crowd. 15 spectators are killed instantly, with many more seriously injured, and Von Trips himself is thrown from the car and dies from his injuries. Incredibly, the race continues, and his own teammate Phil Hill wins and clinches the championship under the most tragic circumstances imaginable. With 16 total fatalities, the Monza disaster remains one of motorsport's deadliest single incidents, forcing sweeping changes to spectator safety. Tom Pryce. South African Grand Prix, Kyalami. 27-year-old Welsh driver Tom Pryce is running a solid midfield race at speeds exceeding 170 miles per hour. Earlier, another car had pulled off with a small fire on the far side of the track. Without authorization from race control, two young marshals decide to run across the live racing surface carrying heavy fire extinguishers, crossing at a section where the track crests a rise, meaning drivers get almost no warning of what lies ahead. Pryce comes over that rise flat out, with zero visibility of the marshals below, and there's no time to react. His car strikes a 19-year-old marshal directly, killing him instantly, and the impact launches the marshal's fire extinguisher into the air like a projectile. It strikes Pryce's head with devastating force, killing him too, inside the cockpit. The horror forces Formula One to completely overhaul its marshalling procedures, banning marshals from ever crossing a live track without clearance. Each of these tragedies came at a devastating cost, but each one also forced Formula One to become safer. The reinforced barriers, the halo device, the modern harnesses, and the strict marshal protocols we take for granted today all trace back to moments like these. If you found this story compelling, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments which motorsport story you'd like covered next.